Hello and welcome to today's panel on retail and the metaverse hosted by George Mason University Center for Retail Transformation and sponsored by Microsoft. My name is Gautam Vatkepat. I am the director for the Center for Retail Transformation. And as part of our efforts to highlight transformation in retail, I'm delighted to host this roundtable on metaverse, where we hear from leading experts who are actually making elements of the metaverse. The reason what metaverse is, the reason for its rise to prominence, the core technologies of the metaverse, the fundamental building blocks of what is the metaverse, and what retailers should look for with regards to pitfalls and opportunities when it comes to the metaverse. Today we have a special treat. We're joined by Michael Zakur, co-founder of Five New Digital and our newest member of the Advisory Council. Michael, take it away.
Gautam, thank you so much, and thanks to our panelists for joining us today, and thank you to everyone in the audience for giving a few minutes of your time to us.
Let's introduce each one of you so that we have everyone in the audience has a good understanding of what you're doing and what's your background and what expertise you bring to the table. And we'll go alphabetical if that's okay with you. Alan, why don't you kick us off from the mall, it looks like, or some outer space.
From within the mall. My name is Alan Smithson. I'm one of the co-founders at a company called Metaverse. Yes, we called our company Metaverse in 2016. I'm not saying Facebook copied our name, but maybe. Nah. Anyway, so the whole, when we called our company that, we didn't realize that, it was a cool name. We didn't think that the entire future of the internet would be called that. So anyway, here we are, and I'm very excited. We're also, so Metaverse is a three parts to our company. We have a studio, we have an engine or a creation platform that's low code and drag and drop, and it's all on the web. And then we've got our properties, and we're starting the properties with the mall. And the mall is 100 million square foot virtual retail and entertainment destination in the metaverse built on our engine. And we'll be showing that soon later today. So thanks for having me, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Casey.
Hi, I'm Casey Golden. I'm the founder and CEO of LuxLock. We're a commerce experience platform that manages the shopper journey across our world and the next by intertwining what we buy with how we live.
Casey wins for best green screen background.
Yeah, I know, and it's live.
Real.
It is
real free.
Lisa.
Hi, my name is Lisa Griego. I am with Microsoft. Between my Microsoft and my P&G experience, I spent about 20 years within the retail and consumer goods space. Here, specifically within Microsoft, I lead a lot of the digital transformation with some of our largest retailers and consumer goods companies across the US. Some have a global footprint, some are based solely out of here, out of the US, but yeah, I'm excited to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much. And Winston, last but not the least.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, this is Winston Ma in New York. I'm a co-founder and managing partner of Cloudtree Ventures, a VC fund that focuses on interactive entertainments, like esports gaming and metaverse technologies. Before that, I had a 10-year experience at Wall Street as a lawyer and a banker, and then more recent 10 years at the CIC, China's sovereign wealth fund, making global investments, including the early version of Twitch and Unity. These are like the early version of metaverse companies years ago. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Metaverse is the word that seems to be on every brand, every company's tongue these days. We just got back from Shop Talk last week, the big retail and e-commerce show in Las Vegas. And it was certainly one of the three most talked about topics of the week there. There was a lot of talk about QR codes and live streaming. There was a lot of talk about retiring the term omni-channel, finally at long last, yay, with unified commerce. But really, I think metaverse is the term that everyone was most interested in. The post-show poll showed that it was what most people took away from the show. One of the highlights of the show was the CEO of PacSun, the youth apparel company based in California, spent their entire time on stage talking about their metaverse strategy. So here you have one of the hottest, biggest, apparel brands in the country, and they talked about how they're, putting clothing and their virtual apparel into Roblox. They built a group of NFT mascots called the Mall Rats. They have a program where users can go in and build their own mall in the metaverse and try to make it profitable. So certainly the big topic, and as it has been, so seemingly from no one talking about it a year ago to everyone's talking about it today. And so that leads us to the first question, why? Why is everyone talking about the metaverse? Yeah, if we can just go around the horn here, I guess we can go in alphabetical order again. Alan, if you want to start us off with, briefly, what is the metaverse? What's behind the term? Why are people talking about it? What does it mean?
Certainly. Thank you so much. I think the term metaverse is actually from a book called Snow Crash. It came out in the 90s. And the term was used to define kind of this infinite world where people could go and they could be different things. They could wander around. But basically what it is, to sum it up really succinctly, is it's the future of the internet. It is the internet. So imagine the internet that we have now is 2D. You scroll, you watch videos. This is great, but you can't go into it. And so with the advent of 3D technologies, you can now walk into the internet, but also the internet can come out to you in augmented reality and things like HoloLens, where I put on the HoloLens and now I have the internet pieces of it coming out to my world, and I can apply data to the world around me. But really there's some other technologies underlying there. So you have 3D, the ability to go in and out of the internet. You have AI, artificial intelligence. So computer vision, being able to know what I'm looking at any given time in the world and put the data appropriately. Natural language processing, being able to talk to AI avatars, these types of things. But then you have blockchain, and blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and these technologies, NFTs, are really rounding out this technology stack. So I'll leave it there, but basically the metaverse is the internet of today and for the next decade.
Fantastic definition. Very nice, succinct definition of what it is. Casey, what's your thoughts?
To me, it's community, interaction, and entertainment. E-commerce has become very static of an experience. It's very flat, very hard to engage with your customers coming from an in-store experience. So the number one question I get is, how do we sell products and get in front of new customers? But we really should just be asking, how can Web3 expand our brand beyond today's reality? And that's why it's just so exciting, is we can create products that we could never afford to run production on. We can create experiences and build spaces that we could never afford to actually build in the real world. So it offers a new way to engage with customers and build our brands.
Casey, you threw in the term there, Web3, into the flow of the conversation. And I think there might be some confusion out there between, what is the metaverse? What is Web3? Are the same thing? How can you help us clarify the difference between the metaverse and Web3, or how they're connected or not connected?
I think Winston has the best answer for this.
I agree. I defer to Winston.
I'm going to defer to Winston.
I read a whole
I think he just wrote a book. Did he just write a book about that?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. So my upcoming book title is The Blockchain Internet. How blockchain breakthroughs empower the cryptocurrency, privacy, and the security foundation of the metaverse. So I totally agree with my colleagues have commented, right? The metaverse should be thought as a new internet, but the term metaverse emphasizes on this interactive entertainment aspect that Casey just mentioned, because the current internet is like 2D, kind of more passive, right? For the upcoming internet, it will be 3D, interactive, immersive, persistent. So metaverse emphasizes interaction among different worlds, if you want, and that also includes online, offline interaction. Now, Web3 highlights the nature of the new internet, right? Web3 implies the features of decentralization, and more on the ownership, because we do not own the current internet, but for the Web3 enthusiasts, right, the Web3 will be potentially owned by the creators like us, and during this process, NFT, the technology rather than the digital art of NFT can be used to define the ownership of everything in Web3. So that's my take of the interaction of these keywords.
So it's fair to say, that we're all going to experience the next iteration of the internet. Web3 is how the next iteration of the internet is being built. The underlying technologies, cryptocurrencies, portability across universes that'll make up the metaverse, and blockchain obviously being the key connector and sort of virtual ledger to put all of this together.
Precisely.
That's
You
a
can
fair
say
assessment.
blockchain is the backbone of Web3, and Web3 is like the tech infrastructure for the metaverse.
I heard this where the people were calling blockchain like the platform on which you build certain things. But Lisa, do you have anything else to add to this conversation of what is the metaverse? And
Yeah, I think as it relates to how we view Microsoft views the metaverse, it's a persistent digital world connecting all of the aspects of the physical world, right? That includes everybody, people, places, things. We've been participating and doing a lot of work with a lot of our customers for the past few years. I'll show you all a video later in terms of what we've been doing with one of our specific customers that you guys all experience that brand. But I think when you look at how we can leverage the metaverse, it enables that ability for us to share experiences across those physical and digital platforms and interact across all of the different applications out there. So it's not just one metaverse that we're going to be or are currently participating in, it's multiple metaverses and drawing that intersectionality between all of them, right? That's how we essentially look at it moving forward. So I think the consumer piece is very super critical to it. And that's what, as it relates to commerce and how we're going to be engaging with all these different brands. But then there's all the back end from an enterprise perspective in terms of what we're doing from an industrial and manufacturing and working with our consumer goods company to get a true read of how are we going to get all of these products like Casey pushes within Let's Lock into the hands to drive those customer experiences that we're all trying to deliver.
Yeah, so for what this means for retailers, brands, CPGs, how is it going to affect the way retailers and brands go to market? How is it going to affect the way we all shop and experience brands, retail, marketing? Coming back to what I said earlier, the retail brand industries have been really quick to adapt to experimentation and testing and learning. I don't know, Alan, if maybe you want to hit on that one first, and then Casey. So why retail, why brands, and what's it going to mean for the builders and the makers and for us consumers?
So, somebody made a good point to me recently that, we have become ruthlessly efficient with the procurement of goods. Amazon has made it so I can go on click, I, pick the 5 stars that I want, I type in the object or the product I want, I hit a button and it comes to me tomorrow or tonight or whenever in an hour. It's crazy. We have become ruthlessly efficient with procurement of goods, but that does not replace the shopping experience. And there's a reason we built malls. It's not just about buying goods. It's about meeting with your friends. It's about building community. It's about having a place to go and something to do with your friends. And the delight of going into a store and seeing something for the first time and feeling the fabrics and things like this. And while you still can't touch things in the metaverse, I think the ability to bring people together, I think this is really going to be super impactful. And I think this will bring back the joy of shopping to the digital world, which we kind of lost. We're like, how do we just make it super efficient to get me my paper towels? And that's cool for paper towels. But if I want to go and look at something and experience what a brand has to offer, maybe it's not even a shopping experience at all. Maybe I can't even buy anything. Maybe it's just the experience of the brand and the essence of what that means to me as a consumer. I think this is what's super cool. And, brands need to think, hey, what if we just took it back a step, and did something like Samsung's 837 store where, it's just an experience center where you can experience the products, you can ask questions, you can touch them, feel them, but you can't even buy them. And so I think what the difference is between the metaverse and what we have in current e-commerce is that e-commerce is just a procurement of goods versus a shopping experience. And I think what we're doing at the mall is trying to bring that back and bring the sense of community with you and your friends to come meet, look at things, explore, almost like Fortnite with shopping instead of shooting.
I love the definition. Shopping instead of shooting. All right. Any other thoughts on
Yeah.
this very important point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pair right off of that, right? That of Alan's procurement of goods. You know, Amazon did a great job at scaling trade and that act of barter, this for that. But Selfridges invented shopping, and that was the first time women were able to be. It was socially acceptable for women to be out of the house for no reason. And we went to the store and we shopped, and it was this moment in between the door, purpose, and checkout. And sometimes you didn't buy something, but you experienced, you were educated, you learned, and price goes out the door because it doesn't matter how much it is. And so people really understand shopping, and even our avatars need to wear clothes at the very basic of going into the metaverse, but they're used to buying tangible physical items. So I think, you know, providing that meaningful utility is going to need a compelling why, because the how to play in the metaverse or engage has a gargantuan barrier of entry for mass adoption. I believe exclusive commerce experiences with brands that we already love and trust are going to be proven to be most successful in driving that trusted adoption and bringing that commerce to the other side.
Any other thoughts, Winston, Lisa?
Yeah, I would say that one key word that was mentioned was that immersion, right? Everybody's going to be immersed into the metaverse in some form or fashion in the future, whether it's going to be personalized avatars that's going to embed in whatever product. We have Microsoft Mesh, which will go through and create human avatars of people. And so you go through and are physically present, but it's an avatar of you present in a meeting in of itself. And you're sitting there in a room, and then you have a camera and you're talking to that hologram of me in a meeting, right? How cool would it be if Casey and I were here and then I could see you and like do a fake bro hug across the board? You know what I mean? Like that's where the evolution of where all of this technology and the capabilities is going to be moving forward. And I'm really excited to see how the evolution transpires even in the short couple of years. I'm excited to finally showcase a lot of the stuff that Microsoft has been doing with some of our customers, which is tented at the moment, but we're going to be releasing and announcing our unveiling of what we believe the metaverse to be at Build coming up in May, May 25th through the 27th. If you haven't signed up, check it out. Alan, I see you're like, yeah, let's do it. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of stuff to share, and we've been actively participating in this space for quite some time. Just with a lot of the work that we've been doing from digital twins, it's been pretty remarkable to see.
Yeah, you know, I think my colleagues talked mostly from the perspective of unique experiences, and that's certainly a consumption upgrade. You know, I'm using the term in the Chinese e-commerce market, right? That Michael is very familiar with. You know, certainly, you know, the consumption upgrade means like a more unique experience, you know, more utility, that kind of thinking, right? But for a large part of Chinese e-commerce community, right, consumption upgrade is still about buying cheap stuff in a fun way. And I think when you look at the example of Pinduoduo, that kind of a group purchase on WeChat, it's very easy to understand that in the metaverse you can see a similar setup but more interactive, more immersive in the context of a new social network. And so here a quick example would be just discount, right? The Singles Day in China, you know, the shopping extravaganza every year, right? Discount is always a big part. So on day one, it was just discount, right? And then you have online, offline interaction. You know, you have a countdown. You have a kind of a variety show leading to the countdown of the beginning of the shopping 24-hour extravaganza, right? And then during the gala, discounts will be sent out as coupons, and the gala will be broadcasted on video platforms, and then the discounts will be sent via the videos as well. So that was more developed, right? But in recent years, right, you have to put on AR VR glasses to play a game to find that discount coupon. In the end, it's still the same kind of discount, but you put in a lot more gamification to it. And I think the metaverse development will further power this gamification process, and then you still get the same discount.
That's interesting. So yeah, we've seen clearly, you know, in most areas in retail, e-commerce, digital commerce, China, you know, traditionally over the last decade has been 3 or 4 years ahead of where the West is. You know, they did live streaming first, they did QR codes first, they did social commerce first.
Exactly.
They've certainly taken a deep dive into the metaverse. You know, so there are lessons to be learned from what's happening in China. Pivoting to what should brands and retailers and CPGs be thinking about first? How do they take their first tentative steps into this new internet? And I think that's really, in my opinion, the best explanation of what the metaverse is. It's the internet, but the next generation, interactive, immersive. As far as, you know, shopping goes, it brings back serendipity. It brings back, you know, discovery. Algorithms kill discovery. All of that. So I think a lot of people are very interested in taking part from a brand and retail perspective. Maybe if you all can share with us some case studies or examples of who've stepped in, and what are some of the things from a, you know, consumer facing and technology facing point of view that the listeners can start exploring the metaverse. I don't know if Alan, Lisa, Casey, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. You know, I think at the very first step, they've never been technology companies, and most have been late adopters at that. So we have a heavy haul for the next 2 years, excluding anything Web3, just to be able to prepare for how digital this world is getting at post-pandemic. So, I mean, I don't recommend any of the brands spending time on the how, but really just focusing on their why, and building that community and leveraging the partners and players that are in the space that are able to iterate and grow fast enough, and just really experiment with turnkey partners and getting firsthand knowledge and experiment to get that consumer engagement and build those footprints together rather than taking it all in-house.
I tend to agree with that. We build a drag and drop, super easy, low code system for building these experiences, but it's still not that easy. You know, you have to create 3D versions of all your products, and you know, most companies aren't set up for that yet. So what Casey said about, you know, finding trusted partners, this is really essential. You can go to groups like the VR AR Association for the graphics layer, the Blockchain Association for the blockchain layers, but make sure that you're working with legitimate companies. Do your research, make sure that they have other enterprise experience. I'll just quickly share some visuals while we talk through this, but this is a virtual showroom that we built a little while ago. And the idea was, you know, how do we make, you know, products kind of interactable in virtual spaces? And the idea here is that, you know, there's no avatars or anything. You're just a shopping experience where you can look at different products. I can change the colors, perhaps. I can maybe look at the product from all different angles. You know, these types of things here. But making this, it doesn't need to be that difficult. You know, what we did here was actually, you know, fairly low code. You know, maybe there's a little bit of code here and there, but where it becomes a little bit more difficult is connecting your back-end business intelligence systems. You know, if you're using Microsoft systems for your order management or your delivery or logistics, you know, being able to click that buy now button and, you know, zoom in here, click checkout, and it automatically connects everything in the back end. That's where it gets a little bit more custom. But the idea should be that anybody in your team should be able to start building these experiences. And that's what we're really focused on, is how do we give the power of creation of these types of experiences to everyone. And, you know, it's not just for products like this. You know, you can also have, you know, training products. You know, this is a medical device that, Maybe you want to teach people about the features of it. It articulates on these two arms, and you can teach not only the users of it, but you can use it for your marketing. You could use it for your training. You can even teach people about the controls and how it works. These are all things that are possible right now out of the box. And of course, it's fully spatial. You can also add extra elements in here. Say, okay, I want to know what it looks like when somebody's doing a chest ultrasound, right? So there you go. You've got a patient. You can see what that's all about. And of course, this can be brought into augmented reality and things like the HoloLens, or virtual reality and things like the Oculus Quest. So idea is that everybody should be able to build these things, whether it's your subject matter expert or your hardcore web designer. They should be able to come together and build these experiences together. But again, until you have some experience with this, bring on a validated team, let them build the first few with them, and get them to teach you how they did it. Because at the end of the day, there's way more work to be done to create everything into 3D than can be possibly done by any of the companies that exist today. So this is an exploding field where people are building new careers. So.
Yeah, Alan, you brought up a very interesting point there about, okay, this all looks great, but when it comes time to click the buy now button, right? Brands and retailers have their OMS, they have their inventory visibility systems, all of their back end. And so we've seen some great examples of, Ralph Lauren creating virtual apparel in Roblox. We talked about PacSun. We've seen Gucci build the Gucci Garden luxury experience. But to that point, maybe Lisa might have some insight, and we can go around the horn here. But how close are we to making this a reality for e-commerce specifically, right? Digital buying. Is there a bridge to be crossed from, this immersion to making it actually work for commerce?
We already have it working on our end. We because it's JavaScript in the back end, as long as your order management and your business intelligence tools are web-based, we just put an API together and boom, now you've got an API between the two. And so when you hit order now, the consumer only sees the virtual world. They never leave the virtual world. They do all the conducting. They have their little shopping button and they check out right from the virtual world. But on the back end, it's actually going over to your existing order management. It's almost like, get rid of the 3D world. That's just the visual layer. It could be a 2D e-commerce site. It doesn't really matter. We just adding a visual layer that makes it feel more immersive for the customer. But at the end of the day, you're literally just connecting to what already exists. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. And I think, Lisa, your team does an amazing job at building the back end infrastructure for retail. So maybe I'll pass it over.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, essentially, when you think of metaverse, it's creating that immersive UX for the consumer and how they interact with the brand. So just like Alan was sharing, everything stitched together on the back end will still remain true. You don't have to rip and replace existing systems right now. Those will evolve just as technology evolves over time, right? And whether you have a SaaS solution, iPaaS, whatever the case may be. And I think when you're looking at it from what other retailers and consumer goods can do right now, it's taking those steps to connect your physical world with your digital world. What are you doing from an equipment perspective? How are you leveraging IoT at the edge in order to drive that? That then leads into creating those digital twins in order to replicate and simulate and model what the future engagement with those customers can look like, right? If you're going through and have the ability to create a digital twin, you can understand what's going to be happening. You can be more predictive. You can synchronize with what's happening in the physical with the digital at any given moment. You're able to interact with consumers as well as people within your organization and the things around you across different mediums, across different channels. And you're able to go through and leverage all that to compute what's happening, analyze the information. Right? In this specific instance, if you think back to what happened with COVID-19, and what the pandemic caused, and the fact that everybody was buying toilet paper off the shelves, everything was out of stock. There's a way to have simulated that now moving forward, because we have that historical data to say, okay, if this happens, then this will take place, and you could build you could stay ahead of it, right? You can, within one, with communication from a CG or the retailer, you could say, hey, pantry loading is taking place, limit purchase for one per basket. And that would have alleviated a lot of that. But we didn't have the ability to connect in real time to prevent that, which caused a lot of some of the supply chain issues that we saw that are prevalent and are still prevalent today, and the ripple effect of what that caused just throughout the entire ecosystem as a whole prevented that CX to be affected, right? I mean, across the board, it didn't matter if I was bought a home and had to furnish my house literally virtually, which, can you imagine? I had to furnish my house virtually. I wasn't able to sit on a couch because I'm buying stuff on the internet, in order to purchase it, but it's just insane. So I think because of that, it forced consumers to accelerate their buying habits and change their buying habits. And now that they've shifted over to that space, I think now with Meta, Web3, and that creating that immersive experience, it's just a natural progression. We all as consumers were just forced into it at a fast clip because of what happened during that time period. And being landlocked in our homes. We had no other choice, right?
Yeah.
Could have helped you decorate, Lisa.
I know. Well, now when you come down, sister, let's do it.
And that brings the social aspect of things that Metaverse enables, right? Is that you can go in multiple different places. But Winston, any thoughts that you have on what does this take to bring it mainstream and make commerce mainstream on the Metaverse?
I think the interesting keyword mainstream and this SaaS, right? These are the terms that are kind of in conflict with the decentralization kind of thinking from Web3 perspective. But so let's think about this, right? So mainstream, like NFT can come to the market, but what brings NFT to the mainstream have been the major brands and the large corporations, right? And then SaaS, right? No one wants to create a metaverse company from scratch, so they have to leverage existing infrastructures, right? So we will sort of just like again like NFT, you have OpenSea as a major infrastructure, and for metaverse shops, as we just discussed, right? We will see Shopify, Alibaba type of players to emerge, right? They will provide that kind of platform, payment system, inventory system, and a lot of services in the background, right? So all these things are very centralized, and down the road we will need to find that balance, right, between centralized platforms and then decentralized operation, data privacy, and data security, right? So these will be very interesting technology area to focus on going forward.
That brings, wow, that opens a whole can of worms there, Winston, about, in the metaverse and in a Web3 environment, who owns the data? I mean, the promise of decentralization is that you own your data, not somebody else. And, can this all really be scaled on a decentralized basis? Or are we simply going to see, if it's the current big 5 tech companies or a new crop, that at some point the payments and all of this are going to be centralized, but maybe under a different name?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
they will become this new FAN, the
right.
new big 4 companies. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we can't plan anything if these tools don't come into the organizations. And that's kind of the take we took on through Web3 and working with our partners is about, you sell on multiple locations, but at the end of the day, you're working with the same customer across different physical stores across the globe, different e-commerce stores. These brands own portfolios. They own lifestyle assets like restaurants and hotels. And now the metaverse allows us to bring it all together, but you have to recognize your customer. You need to be able to understand what products do we need to create for the metaverse. And, if somebody's spending $60,000 on an NFT or $800 on a leather jacket for their avatar, you better believe that purchase needs to go back to the brand to increase my LTV as a customer, right? Because I get perks based off of how much we spend. And we do a lot of planning based off of how consumers spend. So if we have Web3 out into a new silo, I always say, I'm like, I just closed a lot of silos in our real world and now everybody's building new ones.
You mentioned something really interesting, Casey, that I think people are underestimating is the power of direct to avatar selling. The reason we buy clothes, the reason I bought this fancy jacket here isn't because I like the material. It's because it's my outward personification to the world. And the more that we spend time online as digital avatars, that is our outward personification to the world. So the more we're going to start spending to make our avatars look balling out of control. I mean, I'm probably the least fashionable person, at least in this panel for sure. But, one of those things is that not only can we give people this incredible experience of fashion in the metaverse, but if you think about it long term, this also decreases the environmental impact of fast fashion. Because if you can get your fix of fast fashion for your avatar rather than actually ship yourself something that you're going to wear once, take a couple selfies, and then either return or ends up in a landfill, I think we can really actually dig into the environmental impact of this. And if everybody's spending 7 to 10 hours a day online, why wouldn't you want your avatar to have some cool clothes? And they don't have to be real in the real world at all. I mean, you can have the same Nike shoes as your avatar in real life too, but you don't need it. And so I think the cool environmental aspect to moving our fashionista brands into the metaverse. And I think we're not only scratching the surface of what's possible here.
Yeah, and that's right. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Casey.
It goes right back into what Winston was saying about, really focusing on that data interoperability, security, privacy, and who owns the data. At the end of the day, consumers own their transactional data. They should be able to use it, leverage it, take it with them. So really, I look at it as this is our greatest opportunity to have data interoperability, so that if I buy a jacket at Roblox, I get to wear it in Decentraland, or I can go into a meeting maybe in Meta. And this is, at the end of the day, the only way that's going to happen is if we can aggregate this data and get it to the consumer in a safe and engaging way for them to be able to unlock their identity and feel secure.
There's a lot that has to happen from a technical standpoint to make that happen. We still don't even have consensus on what 3D objects are going to be the standards. So for example, there's a group called the Kronos Group, and they're trying to figure out, is it VHS or beta right now? And for anybody who's old enough to know what that means, CDs or Blu-ray. I'll even bring it up to speed now. Like if I send you a photo, chances are it's a JPEG, right? Most phones save it as a JPEG. But I could send you an SVG, I could send you a PNG, I could send you other different formats, and most of them are standard around the world. With 3D, you have 100 different 3D model formats, and nobody's really got consensus on it. The entire world started to move towards this thing called a GLTF or GLB file, and the idea is that it has all the data involved. So I can drop my product in, it puts on the texture files, it puts, because a 3D model is not just an image, it's a three-dimensional shape wrapped with texture files as well, and not just texture files, but an image of what it looks like, then maybe some bumpiness to make it look like the materials.
I love the point that you just said, right, Alan, which is we need to have standards, right, that allows people to build together. Lisa, I saw you started saying something. Do you have something else to add?
Well, no, I would just piggyback on what Casey was talking about. Like within Microsoft, we're trying to build that open platform that puts the identity, privacy, and trust at the core. And people have to feel secure within this space, period, and stop. Like that is table stakes, and that's Jack's to open. And so when you think about it from that perspective, how she communicated it, because we all know Casey likes her expensive clothes. She'll probably laugh at how much I paid for this jacket, but that's besides the point. But in that specific instance, how can you go through and tailor and connect all of my past purchases so I can channel and show up the exact same way, regardless of platform, and to create that seamless flow. So if I'm an avatar and I'm attending a future concert or whatnot, I'm going to rock the same outfit, and my hair is going to look a different way than it would if I'm at a business or work event. And creating that same consistent version of yourself throughout each one of these platforms, I think, is ultimately where we're going to be going.
So how do we, using that as a pivot, separate what's real from what's hype? What's going to happen this year and next year and the year after versus, listen, the beautiful thing about an early paradigm shift is that anything's possible. And I think the beautiful thing about what we're talking about in Web3, Metaverse, NFT, and blockchain is that there are thousands of companies and tens of thousands of individuals working independently of each other to build all this, right? And that's its greatest strength, but could also be our future internet's greatest weakness. And so just talking about how we look, it's one thing to build a Gucci garden or do some avatar-based clothing, but how do we overcome, these obstacles? And so maybe if you guys want to just spend a few minutes, for the listeners, where do you see hype versus reality, and how do we tell the difference?
Well, I think before we do that, I think we should just all give up to the Meta mothership and just, let them build the future of the internet, and we'll just all go into.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No.
We won't do that.
It goes
No.
against the decentralized move.
That would be a hard no.
Hard
I
no.
don't think anybody
Yeah.
wants that.
So we have agreement here that we need to
We have
decentralize
consensus?
the creation.
That's one API I'm not building.
To kind of be serious for a second, Meta or Facebook is going to build a huge part of this, and Microsoft's going to build a huge part of this, and Google and Apple. And I think it starts at those levels where they say, hey, listen, let's build some consensus around not only the 3D part of it, because that's just the visual layer, but also the blockchain consensus layers. If I want to buy, or maybe I want to mint an NFT on the Hedera blockchain, which is super low energy, right? Super low environmental impact. But then I want to go sell that on OpenSea, they're not compatible. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot of bridges and a lot of people kind of creating that middleware that makes it all interoperable. It's not going to be, hey, Oracle came in and said, here's the blockchain for the future, we're all going to use this. It's going to be a bunch of things. There'll be winners, there'll be losers. We're seeing money being poured into this area, especially in the crypto world. And it's like any other Gartner hype cycle. You have the up, and then of course you have the crash, and then the real value is built on the kind of back end of that of the dip. And so I think what we're going to see is there's going to be all these tools made for interoperability to make it all work. And then, maybe they'll get consolidated, Microsoft and the bigger, Apple and these companies will just kind of start to scoop them up and build them into infrastructure layers that we can all use for free. And I think this is going to be what it happens. Everybody's got this vision for the fully decentralized world, but we've never had that in human history that has been successful. So, complete decentralization is a pipe dream at this point.
No, I mean,
Okay.
we're all supply chain junkies on this call, and at the end of the day, these are enterprise solutions. This is supply chain, and this is why I think retail is going to take a lead in it, is because we have that experience on what the reality is of what's going to make this happen. And we're gonna be building a lot of the things that nobody wants to take pictures of, nobody wants to talk about. It's going to be ugly supply chain infrastructure projects that is going to take a ton of cash, but it's going to make it's what's going to separate it from this being real in 24 months versus that was a nice idea.
I would say a
another
lot of
6 years.
collaboration too, right? It can't. I think that's the theme that I've heard throughout this talk is we are all in it, and we all have to play a role to kind of do it. Winston, what's your thoughts on separating the hype from the reality of?
Yeah, at the early stage of tech revolution, you always see people try to find the problems, right, from a new solution that they have. So these days you start to see guys try to use NFT to identify tickets, but the tickets are unique data by themselves. Why do you need another layer of NFT, right? And then
I can speak to that, Winston, and that's actually simple, because if I'm Ticketmaster and I sell you a ticket and you sell it to somebody else, let's say I sell it to you for $100, you go sell it for $1,000. I don't get any additional revenue, or the artist doesn't get any additional revenue from the subsequent sale. With an NFT, the NFT holder, they can set, or the NFT creator, minter, can set a percentage. So if I sell you my ticket for $1,000, I get 20% of that subsequent sale. That is the fundamental difference in why you would use it for tickets. But anyway, that's just one.
The gray market. Good point.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'm only talking about the NFT kind of a unique identification side. Of course, you can talk about smart contract to to arrange revenue sharing, but of course, you can do that with something else as well. But it's good to put it out there. But then another one, like sports brands, right? They say that you can buy a hoodie with a blockchain address.
Oh, I've seen that with an NFC chip in the tag. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
So it is still a hoodie, right? But it has a
it's a collectible
blockchain address. So I think it's just natural, right? At the beginning of the revolution, people are looking for a context for solutions. But I think back to our topic of consumers, right? The consumer story, the e-commerce story, this is probably the best on-ramp to Web3 because it's a big market and it's very intuitive to average users. So we will see most interesting developments from the consumer side, actually.
Yeah, and I would say, like, going back to that piece in terms of how we're looking at it, there's that consumer metaverse, right, where Facebook Meta sits, and then that interacts with the enterprise metaverse, which is driving a lot of those collaboration productivity tools where Microsoft Mesh Teams and everything would fit. And then you have the industrial metaverse where you're talking about a lot of the software and what needs to be true behind the scenes, creating that Microsoft industrial look in terms of connecting all of the dots where Casey had mentioned earlier, right? You have to draw the connectors and the data from what's happening in terms of where product creation is going, how it's being worked within the actual company in itself from an enterprise, and then link it back to the consumer and creating that seamless integration between the two and driving that interoperability. And then once you're at the consumer facing, then it interacts with all the different brands and or platforms, regardless of what's there, because the connectors theoretically, right, will be working seamlessly in terms of
I love how you brought that theoretically in there.
Yeah.
Theoretically, it all
you were even how you were explaining it, creating that seamless integration, right? There's going to be a lot of different brands. Harley Davidson is going to be in that same mall with Nike. That's going to be in the same mall with Gucci. And to Casey's point, that consumer overlaps across the multiple different brands that they're interacting with. And then you as a consumer, if you spend $100,000 in whatever goods, you want to be treated completely differently. I'm not going to respond to a $20 coupon. I want that bottle of Schramsberg or Veuve Clicquot like delivered to my house, right? Because I am a loyal customer or a consumer of that specific brand. So I think we just need to evolve along through the time as the consumer's patterns or level of personalization changes, and they're going to be responding to these brands a little bit differently than they have in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, I see it. I saw it a lot, even just at Shop Talk. So much of the technology players and founders, and even the larger organizations, like everybody's sitting around a table working together versus competing against each other, because it is very apparent that this is going to be a large collaboration of different specialties to bring everything together. And it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
maybe I can ask you that question then, right? We've talked all these brands that have been thrown around are the bigger name brands. And I think, Alan, you set this up nicely saying like, hey, that's where it starts. Is it going to, how do the smaller players, like what do they, the center here is focused more on the smaller players, right? So as I say it, and I'll give my viewpoint, the infrastructure is not there for the smaller players at this point of time. There's a lot of computing. There's not a lot of education on how to enter the metaverse itself. So they're facing uphill climb, but they also have opportunities to use the metaverse. But that's my perspective on things. So what's your thoughts on how the smaller retailers can enter the metaverse and leverage this momentum that everybody else seems to be taking part in?
Well, I mean, I'll just speak from a Microsoft perspective. We truly live our vision statement. We want to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more, period, and stop. You can reach out. If you're a brand new company and you're trying to figure out what's what in the space and you're trying to understand the interoperability between the cloud and different biz app solutions or what to do to drive those collaboration productivity tools, call our go to our Microsoft.com website. We have people readily available in order to provide and drive that connection
from the get-go, just to ensure that your infrastructure is set up and you're building and setting your future company to size as you scale for success, right? I met with a startup company yesterday for this one specific brand, an amazing brand, but that brand is at its infancy, right? And they are looking to Microsoft to say, okay, we need you in order to scale. And it's like, yes, we're here, let's do it, right? But let's make sure your foundation is set in place so you can do that, right? And let's bring the smartest people in the room to help you think through, okay, what does your back-end infrastructure look like? How is the architecture set in place to build what that future roadmap can exist, right? As well as providing the visibility to what our future roadmap is going to be to drive that connection. And I think depending on the brand, regardless of the size, we have multiple different levels, at least within our organization, in order to help facilitate that. But to your point, I think in this specific space, I think where we rise, yeah, you have the big players, but we have to work together to democratize the technology so all ships rise at the exact same time. And it's that same mentorship mindset, right? You have to turn and pull, right? Why couldn't a Nike reach out to a smaller, I'm making it up, why couldn't Nike reach out to a smaller brand that's not yet established and say, hey, let's go through and figure out what a joint collaboration could look like. I see your brand is like growing, but like, why wouldn't we be able to do that? There's enough commerce and there's enough commerce out there in order for everybody to succeed and win together. That's Lisa's opinion, right? Because I fundamentally believe that that's the case.
No, it is. And the more we
I'm
can
hoping that's the
operationalize
paradigm
it.
shift, right? We go into a collaborative world where everyone collaborates and the rising tide lifts all boats, kind of an idea. Winston, do you have any thoughts to add to what smaller businesses before we go to Alan and Casey?
Yeah, we should move forward. I think we spent enough time on this topic.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a follow-up to that.
I agree, Winston. I disagree. The smaller companies are getting buried by the big companies, literally buried. And one thing we're doing is we're actually making floors. So we have 100 floors in the mall, and floor 18 and 19 are for small businesses. We've broken them down into small 5,000 square foot stores. There's 10 different versions of the store, but all you have to do is add your images and videos and a couple of products. The other thing that's happening kind of rapidly is all the different phones now have LiDAR scanners built in. The new iPhones and the new Androids have LiDAR scanners, which means you can take a product, walk around it in a circle, and it will create a 3D version of the product for use in retail and e-com. And I know Shopify has been doing a ton of work in that space as well. So, we really do have to give small businesses the opportunity to be part of this, because otherwise we're just going to have a generic vanilla life of Amazon and a couple handful of brands, and we're missing out in the culture part of what small businesses and entrepreneurs can do for the world. So anyway, that's my piece.
We're coming close to our time being up. With all of this positivity, and we're all kind of true believers here, there is still a lot of hesitancy and pushback in the broader business community, certainly within brand, retail, CPG organizations. Whether it's just they don't believe all of this is real, whether it's happening, or they think it's 5 years down the line, it's not something they need to worry about right now. What would we all say to executives and decision makers at small businesses, SMBs, large businesses, multinationals, for those who are hesitant to really take their first steps into this next iteration of the internet and of retail and of branding? What do we say to those people to say, hey, look, this is something that it's going to pass you by if you don't act quickly, and this is a great time for testing and learning. Just as an example, a company could basically spend the equivalent of running 5 commercials on getting 5,000 square feet in the mall. Why wouldn't you do that for all, right? So what do we say to those who are hesitant or maybe not believing that this is where the world is going?
My first piece of recommendation is really to build your community, and your customers and your community will tell you what they want and what to build and what they're ready for. And so anybody who's saying, what do I do first? I challenge any brand to turn their email marketing program into a Discord channel and start having two-way conversations with their customers. to start understanding when do they need to play and how are they going to play.
I totally mirror that. Like knowing your customer and consumer first and foremost that's I said table stakes before, but that's the other table stakes version, right? You have to design to delight your end consumer at the end of the day. And if you're not there and you're completely missing the mark and you're taking the latest fad in whatever happens in whatever region and trying to bring it here to the US that may not fit that specific demographic and or segmentation, it just will fall flat. And if you truly have that loyalty with those brands, you're going to be able to understand and anticipate what their next move is going to be. You're going to be able to know that Alan's on his way to Shop Talk and he wants a flashy blazer. So you're going to automatically do it. See that? You're going to automatically do a push notification to him and say, hey, this is what we found, this perfect jacket or blazer for you in order for you to rock that look coming up to Shop Talk. But creating that seamless integration and knowing the consumer to me is the most important.
Yeah, I would say like for all the companies, right, they have to look into metaverse because the future generation consumers are into the metaverse. For the existing generation, maybe not everyone can handle a crypto wallet, or people feel uncomfortable with AR, VR experiences, right? But for these people, for the young generation, they started their life, in a online merge with offline type of environment, and they're very comfortable with crypto wallet, NFT marketplace, so on and so forth, right? And then last year during the Christmas, one of the most popular gift was among the young generation was to send each other an NFT, some kind of unique digital asset. And I think this trend will go on. And so the metaverse is here for brands and corporations to incorporate, in order to engage the young generation.
Alan, last words.
I will leave you with this, and honestly, I think Lisa, you nailed it with the fact that we need to delight people, make things that are fun. Shopping was always fun for me. I have very fond memories of going to the mall with my mom, and and wandering around, looking at random things, trying on silly hats and things like this. And I think we need to make shopping fun again. And it doesn't need to even look like a mall. Like right now, we've designed a mall, but it could be a golf course. It could be a racetrack. It could be anything, right? So I think we need to really think outside the box of what could be when you give people unlimited access to really cool technologies. So, I think there's a great opportunity here to create delight and fun experiences for people. And I think that's going to be the secret to this for brands moving forward, is how to excite people and get them to want to come back and bring their friends. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. So my conclusion is that Metaverse is just the next iteration of the internet, where we're trying to make shopping fun, experiential, and social again, right? And we have some barriers. We got to get the technology up there. We got to collaborate to kind of get to do this. But you guys are doing amazing work. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share your viewpoint to each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
guys are awesome.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.